And this is America's Mayor Live, and we're coming to you from Dover, New Hampshire. And right now, because we've been telling you that for quite some time, we're going to show you where we're coming to you from. Now, Ted's going to get it ready.
Well, while you get that ready, I'm going to play a short video. This is from our New England lobster bake yesterday.
Yeah, do that. That'll get him hungry.
Oh, well, that was a short one. That was a short one. We'll get the longer version up.
So right above me is an apartment that I'm staying in, and that's what it looks like out the window. Just take a look at that.
You can zoom in if you want. Get rid of the extra. There you go. I'll get some better. Okay.
There you go.
That's it. There you go. Zooming in. It's water.
That's on the way to the ocean, my friend. There's another shot of it. Pretty good. You like that? We'll show you a few more too, if I can. This is a nice road, a nice country road. A little nice, quiet country road. We'll see what else we have here. We got a few other. Oh, there's another picture of the lobsters if you want to see them. I think you do. There's Wayne dishing them out.
Tom making an appearance in the background.
That's the yacht club that it was at. There's a little crew having a very serious discussion. Wayne working hard on it. Well, you don't want that, that's for sure. Okay. So, and this is the actual house right here. This is looking back the other way from the, see right there? There it is. So you get a pretty good picture of it.
Yeah.
That's it. So let's start off with the president's. Ted, do you have Carolyn's little description of the president's physical condition? I thought that'd be a good thing to start off with because it's good, happy news, and we have a great president who's in great shape at a very, very healthy age, which is a wonderful thing to see.
Yes, it is, and we'll play that in just we have it.
It's a very, very, very good news, and it's a heck of a lot better than where we were last.
On the president's hand and also swelling in the president's legs. So in the effort of transparency, the president wanted me to share a note from his physician with all of you today. In recent weeks, President Trump noted mild swelling in his lower legs. In keeping with routine medical care and out of an abundance of caution, this concern was thoroughly evaluated by the White House medical unit. The president underwent a comprehensive examination, including diagnostic vascular studies. Bilateral lower extremity venous Doppler ultrasounds were performed and revealed chronic venous insufficiency, a benign and common condition, particularly in individuals over the age of 70. Importantly, there was no evidence of deep vein thrombosis or arterial disease. Laboratory testing included a complete blood count, comprehensive metabolic panel, coagulation profile, D-dimer, B-type natriuretic peptide, and cardiac biomarkers. All results were within normal limits. An echocardiogram was also performed and confirmed normal cardiac structure and function. No signs of heart failure, renal impairment, or systemic illness were identified. Additionally, recent photos of the president have shown minor bruising on the back of his hand. This is consistent with minor soft tissue irritation from frequent handshaking and the use of aspirin, which is taken as part of a standard cardiovascular prevention regimen. This is a well-known and benign side effect of aspirin therapy. And the president remains in excellent health, which I think...
I'm looking at my hands. I do a lot of handshaking when I take aspirin. Or I used to. I actually stopped taking aspirin. But the doctor, there's sort of a dispute about that 83 point something, 0.83 little aspirin thing. And I do take a blood thinner because I had 2 cents put in. And the debate is, do you need that as well? And just going with the one thing, but we'll see. But I was getting, when I was taking the aspirin, it's very funny. I was getting sores on my hand. And I do, of course, shake hands a lot. It's nice to know. I'm going to ask my doctor if it was the same thing. Tariffs. Wall Street Journal said, going to ruin the economy. By now, we're going to be in a recession approaching the Great Depression. What are we going to do with this crazy Trump? By July, we'll be ruined with all the tariffs. Well, here it is, mid-July, and inflation is well within bounds. Trump hasn't had a single month that's as bad as Biden's best month. He set records for the stock exchange. Unemployment is starting to go down. We're pulling in enormous amounts of tariff revenue to such an extent that our debt extension is moving out 2 months. Everybody seems to listen to us in the world. So I don't want to say this too loud because I don't want to get attacked. You know how afraid I am of getting attacked. The Wall Street Journal is wrong. They don't know what they're talking about. They got themselves like crazy on tariffs. Now, I don't know if the Wall Street Journal people make money, made money, know how to make money. I know a guy who made a lot of money. He was my finance chair when I ran for mayor twice. You know him, Ken Langone. He's Langone Hospital in New York, founder of Home Depot. He's on television quite a bit. He's also been one of the, at times, biggest contributors to the Republican Party, and at times very angry at the Republican Party. Is the biggest contributor to George Bush the first, then got angry when George Bush said, you know, read my lips, and he raised taxes. And he helped Perot. Then he supported me very assiduously, including when I ran for president. And he supported President Trump, but he was concerned. I don't remember if it was during the campaign or right near the beginning of the administration that Trump was going to spend all his time getting even. You know, he was going to be a vindictive president, and he had so many things to do, he better not. Well, this is a very, very unusual thing for a very important man to say. I was dead wrong. And Kenny is not a guy that says he's wrong often. This is about as big a tribute to Trump as you can get. I know you don't know Ken as well as I do, but if you've happened to see him, he's a lot on Squawk Box. You'll know what a strong personality is. And he's a very, very successful, self-made multi-billionaire. So on Squawk Box, he says that he was concerned that he'd be engaged in retribution. And that's why he was critical. But now he says, I'm happy to say that I'm comfortable he's doing that. He's acting presidential. I'm impressed with the people he's got around them. Okay? He now believes the big, beautiful GOP bill will trigger significant economic growth, and Trump may be one of the greatest presidents. You have it? Good. Because he is one of a kind. It's better to get it from him. You can't imitate Ken too well. But maybe you can if you're a good imitator. I'm not.
Sold on Trump. In fact, I'll say this. I think he's got a good shot at going down in history as one of our best presidents ever.
That is a real turnaround because you didn't want to vote for him.
I tell you the reason. I want to tell you, I'm a believer. What I'm seeing happening is absolutely nothing short of a great thing. And there's a beat. People are walking with more bounce in there. It's all around.
I gave you quite a bit of grief.
Huh?
I gave you grief.
You give me grief?
I gave you grief when it was a binary choice. You're still complaining about Trump and it was a binary choice. It's like, are you kidding me?
Knowledge implies one thing. When you made a mistake, admit it.
Okay.
I think this guy is turning out to be a president.
Right.
One of the pilots on that miraculous trip to Iran that we wiped out, whatever the hell we wiped out.
Right.
He said, you're the only guy that in the presidency that would have done what you did. One of the pilots said that.
Yeah.
And you know what? He's probably right.
I know him for 35 years. That is a hell of an admission. That's a hell of an admission from the creator of Home Depot, I'll tell you, and lots of other things. But Home Depot was his baby. Is Chairman Powell going to stay or go? Go, stay, leave, don't. Is Chairman Powell guilty of building a Taj Mahal for himself on government money, and therefore he can be thrown out for cause? We don't know. He has less than a year to go. He stubbornly will not reduce interest rates. He was reducing interest rates when there were no interest rates to reduce. People were paying nothing for mortgages, for loans on cars, and just about nothing for mortgages. He created the phony, completely phony baloney Biden economy. It's the single biggest reason that Trump has to dig us out. And he did everything political that he could do to help Biden, including right down to the end of the campaign when he lowered interest rates when he didn't have to. So the idea that they're all defending him, that don't interfere politically with the Fed, what a bunch of crap. That's all they did for 4 years is interfere. That's all Powell did for 4 years. His monetary policy was close to criminal. And if we're in a big debt recession situation where we're printing money like it's worth nothing, Powell has more responsibility for that by priming the economy when it didn't have to be primed, by going along with the asinine 3 bills for COVID, including the Inflation Reduction Bill, which was without any doubt a perfect metaphor for communism, socialism, Marxism, 1894, and Joe Biden and the Democrats. If it's an inflation defense bill, it's a bill that creates inflation more than any in history. That bill probably created more inflation than any bill ever passed by America. There's actually a big scandal coming out of it right now in having contracted for electric-driven postal trucks, so that not that we would save money in the postal service or make money in the postal service, but that we would not be attacked by the greenies at whose altar the Democrats worship. And you're talking about a cult Whoa. Whoa. I don't know what cult has predicted the end of the world 3 times, been wrong, and still collects billions of dollars. But the problem with it is we gave these people billions. They're supposed to produce like 30,000 cars. They produced a couple of hundred. And nobody seems to know where that original money is. And now they want their other 10 billion or something. And Congress is looking to stop it under. You tell me what building green cars that you have to subsidize, because if you sold them at market price, they wouldn't sell. How does that cure inflation? Doesn't it do just the opposite? Doesn't it create inflation by pumping more unjustified by the economy money into the economy? Shouldn't the electric car, in what we consider to be a free but fair market economy, have to compete with the other cars? And did anyone consider that if we went all green car, if in fact greenhouse gas has the effect they say it has, it would have twice the effect if we just stayed with the cars that we have now. You say, why? It's using electricity. Okay, dopey. How do you make electricity? I don't know. You put 2 sticks together. You make it with all the same things that create greenhouse gas, jackass. So if you make twice the electricity or 3 times the electricity, you're producing all the material that lends to 2 to 3 times greenhouse gas, which no matter how many cars you made, it would have to be ridiculous just add it on to what we have. You wouldn't even get to a quarter of that. You want a scam? The green scam. Well, Congress, the Senate, has knocked out 9 billion of it. And we're going to make it. We're going to make it past this year. We're going to make it past this year. Man, that is a real. Now, I don't know if AOC, the bartender AOC, has predicted the end by now, has she? That Greta Trumpy has predicted the end a couple of times. Gore predicted it in 2010. And he's been living on borrowed time for a long time. Somehow I think AOC was spouting around when she was tending bar about the world was going to end. Well, now the world's going to end because of the candidates she showed around Washington yesterday. Kind of showed them around. They introduced, they're very proud. You know, they finally have a real communist. I mean, they had some pretty good, close, we could almost say they were communists. I mean, the guy who talks with marbles in his mouth and may choke someday on them, the old stupid old man from up around here, the one who attacks rich people and has made millions in public office, which has to be somehow unethical. I'm trying to find you guys. Go after money.
Frank?
Going to taxpayer revenue, find you real. Like Mark said. So he is supporting Mamdani because Mamdani has the guts to say what he always was afraid of. Here's a guy that went to Cuba. No, went to Russia on his honeymoon. De Blasio went. That's why Mamdani look how friendly they are. Look. And Sanders is laughing at how stupid we are. Yeah, he's saying those people in New York are real jackasses. They'll vote for you, even though you're going to do away with their police. What the hell's the difference? You'll be in Washington. You won't get killed. Just all those stupid people. We got to get rid of a lot of them anyway. Too many of them are conservative. So Mamdani made his trip to Washington. He had a breakfast event with Ocasio-Cortez at the hotel, AC Hotel at the Navy Yard. He had congressmen who showed up proudly. All the left-wing, pro-Islamic, extremist, communists showed up. Ayanna Pressley, who represents the Xinjiang province, Pramila Jayapal, who represents some Islamic terrorist group, Becca Blunt, and Melanie Stansberry, who I don't know, I think they're hangers-on. They showed up. Robert Garcia showed up from California, and he's going to support our Democratic nominee. Several showed up in mass. They said they were pretending to be ICE agents, and 2 or 3 in blackface, but they're not disclosing that. And noticeably, although this is the single biggest mayoralty in the country, the one that's gotten endless publicity for a week, neither the highly courageous and never unwilling to take a tough stand Chuck E. Cheese Schumer didn't show up, and Halfwood Jeffries didn't show up, showing how bold they are in their choice here. And Hochul is still advising Mamdani, and she's playing the mother. The mother of what? The mother of communism? I don't know. Well, nobody else showed up. And then, of course, they never made him public. He didn't give a speech publicly. He didn't have a press conference at the National Press Club, God forbid. He was kind of spirited out of town. You got a few shots of him that were orchestrated. So we got another dumb candidacy going. That's what you do when you have a dumb candidate. I remember David Garth telling me that you don't let him talk. If you got a smart candidate like Trump, you let him talk all the time.
Right.
When you got a silly, jerky kid who's never done a damn thing in his life except live off his father's wealth, who has ideas that are loathsome, evil, the only thing about him is he too stupid to understand what he's saying, or is he an evil person? Because his positions are designed to get people killed. We know his anti-police stance, it's replete with things that will lead to massive murders in New York, because we've played this before. Cuomo and de Blasio did this to us. As a result of Cuomo, who's running against him, I guess he wants to do better. There are 43 cop killers walking the street that would not have been walking the street had the state not made the mistake of voting for two-faced Andrew Cuomo. There would not be the bail laws and the get out early laws and no record laws for violent, sometimes murderous teenagers. And the crime rate that is up, even with its coming down, it's still up 21% since their laws were passed, isn't going down unless they change those laws, which they don't intend to change. And Mamdani intends to make them worse. They took $1 billion out of the police department. They describe that in a way that's dishonest. They say the police department is down to 31,000. It used to be 34,000. Well, it used to be 41,000, actually, when I was the mayor. And what that means is $1 billion was taken out of the police department, and Adams has never put it back. Adams has tried, but that's all Adams does is try. On the things that he's tried, he's accomplished. He tried to get the bail law changed. He tried to get the parole law changed so we wouldn't have 43 cop killers walking around. Every day there's a guy walking the streets that wouldn't be walking the streets if Bloomberg or I were mayor, that hurts, kills, rapes, or kills somebody. He tried to change that. His success was he's done very, very little because he lacks not the ideas necessarily, but he lacks the guts to do it. This guy wants to keep the police department at lower than 32,000, and as a result of the 30% reduction before index crimes went up 26%, you should imagine they'll go up as much, probably more, because Mamdani is even more aggressive at letting people out. Rikers Island, he wants to take off Rikers Island, which is a great place to keep these people, and put them next to your house in 5 boroughs. But he's going to, in the course of doing that, he's going to let about 3,000 people out of Rikers Island. Now, what do you think they're going to do this time? Last time, when they put 2,500 out, they had a 20% increase in crime. What the heck, only 20%? Just a couple more New Yorkers get killed. It won't be like it used to be. We'll just have 100 killed. We're not going to have 2. Luckily, Dinkins isn't going to come back, and we're not going to have 2,300 murders. Although if they keep doing it, who knows? That's a record they're probably aiming for. When the city released 2,000 Rikers Island inmates under bail reform in 2020, crime shot up 20%. So now they want to release, pro-criminal Mamdani wants to release, 3,500. 3,500 criminals. 3,500 people sitting in Rikers Island when it's really hard to get put there. I mean, you got to basically rip somebody's head off and eat it. He wants to let them out. He's going to decrease the police department, which means he's not going to restore the $1 billion debunking. Oh, but he's going to create the Department of Social Bullshit. The DOSS or DOBS, Department of Bullshit. And it's going to be called they're going to take all the domestic violence calls. When like an animal is beating the hell out of his girlfriend. So I had police officers killed doing that. I had a number of uncles who were police officers who, if Mamdani were part of the real world, which he isn't, or ever talk to the police rather than viciously malign them and therefore raise the possibility they'll get killed by one of the maniacs that follows him. They told me that most dangerous calls they made were domestic violence calls because they tend to turn. And sometimes the wife seriously injures you or kills you. In the sad case I had, it was the perpetrator. This man knows nothing but communist ideology. He's a radical socialist. He's a police hater. He's a white hater. He's filled with hate and anger. And he covers it over with bullshit. And he's not too smart, which is why he had to cheat and claim he was black in order to try to get into a school where his father is a president and a professor. And even that didn't get the dope in. But we got him as mayor. Not only do we have a communist, not only do we have a Marxist, not only do we have a guy that is going to get us killed, we got a dope. And things for Adams are not looking good. Today, a lawsuit was filed, the second one, by former Chief Donlin. Now, Donlin was always a strange, Adams makes choices that are hard to sometimes figure out. When he had to kick out Eddie Caban, because Eddie Caban and his brother looked like they were working a playback scheme in the police department, which is, to me, disgraceful. I was part of the Knapp Commission that cleaned up the police department. I prosecuted in the U.S. Attorney's Office over 70 of those cases. And I kept after it all the time I was U.S. Attorney and mayor. And we had little scandals, after Knapp, Koch had a few, and Dinkins had a few, and I had a few, and Bloomberg had a few, and after that, I don't know. But we certainly could say with great certitude that we didn't have systemic corruption in the NYPD. The Knapp Commission was one of the most successful government organizations. But as the great Judge Knapp would have told you, it's never going to last forever. It lasted through Bloomberg. But when we got a crooked mayor back, which is what de Blasio was, and the crooked Democratic Party back in charge, which is the norm for New York's 170 or so years, the Republican or independent is the only time you get honesty. Even the Knapp Commission came from John Lindsay. Well, I didn't think it would affect the police department. Now, I don't know. These are lawsuits by the people that were fired. Now, Donlin was picked by Adams to be the interim police commissioner when Caban had to go in a scandal. Now, I never understood selecting Donlin as an interim commissioner. And from the FBI, if you're going to select an outsider for police commissioner, I'd be the last one to disagree with that. 2 of the 3 police commissioners I selected were outsiders. Bratton was from the Boston PD, and Howard Safer was from the Federal Service of the Marines. Howard Safer was a drug enforcement agent, and he was the number 2 person in Washington in the United Marshal Service. Howard Safer invented the witness protection program. He was a real expert on law enforcement of all different kinds. And through the Marshal Service, had tremendous, and the DEA, where he worked on task forces, had tremendous knowledge of local law enforcement. Bratton understood a sister police force, albeit a small one, but did have time as a New York City transit officer, which of course is a much smaller job. He'd have to make the jump into much higher management skills. But I picked him for a very specific reason. I probably would have preferred to pick someone from inside the department I love so much and had so many family relationships with. Took a lot of heat from those family relationships for doing it. But I wanted somebody who could look at it from the outside. I wanted somebody that could, I wasn't worried about corruption problem. I was worried about motivation problems. Under Dinkins, they were where we are now. Dinkins didn't like them. Dinkins hated them. Dinkins got them killed and beaten to shit in Crown Heights and didn't defend them. Kelly had to come in and do it on his own after 3 days of Dinkins doing what at that time Fat Sharpton wanted him to do. And so the police hated him. They liked Kelly. Under normal circumstances, I'd have kept Kelly because he was about as good as you can be as a police commissioner, and eventually was. But I really felt I needed the change. And I labored long and hard about going outside. But when you go outside, you got to really know what the hell you're doing. And I don't think you go outside for an interim. It's too much of a disruption. But he did. And Donlin, from day one, was at war with the people inside. He now claims they were like the mafia. They were collecting kickbacks all over the city. They were creating false police reports. They had a scheme going like the scheme that possibly is being investigated regarding Adams, the kickback schemes with homeless contracts and with contracts for the illegals who he went way out of his way to attract here before he turned and wanted Trump's pardon. And the case that Donlin brought is apparently filled with I assume, I haven't seen it. I assume it's a civil RICO case, I think. And his main defendants are former deputy mayor for public safety, Kaz Daughtry, who was considered his inside City Hall fix man, Chief of Detectives John Chell, and Public Information Chief Tarek Shepard. Shell's predecessor was Jeffrey Madry, who had to resign. He was all set to do it, but he was alleged to have given people overtime if they gave him sex. So he took over in September of 24. And according to him, he was told to, when he came to him with the strange behavior of these Adams appointees, who he felt were like a little mafia gang, he was told to ease on them and make sure that claims weren't filed. Donlin, it says here, was mortified by the lack of experience as well. Shepard, in his time with the police department, had altogether 15 misdemeanor arrests and 5 felony collars during 20 years. That means he worked maybe 5 out of the 20 years he was with the police department. Daughtry previously failed the NYPD's sergeant's exam. And Shell had fatally shot a fleeing suspect in the back, for which he was found civilly liable. He also felt that they conducted a phony arrest of his wife, who was in a fender bender, and according to the report, nothing untoward, but they arrested her anyway, just to see if they could force him out. And then there were a lot of allegations similar to a lawsuit that was brought earlier by another high-level police officer about the corruption, alleging that Adams Police Department wasn't a police department. It was a racketeering group. At one point, Shepard threatened to kill Donlin. And he alleges in the lawsuit that it was a political patronage machine. Now, here's where it takes on a lot of that. What he is alleging is the history of New York City. For 2/3 of the history of New York City, at least you could say it was a Democrat political patronage machine that was from top to bottom crooked. You could pretty much follow the rule of thumb with maybe a few exceptions. If you have a Democratic mayor, you have a crooked city. If you have Democrats in charge, the Democrats who run the various boroughs, the political bosses, will appoint the judges and make believe that you select your judges, but all the judges are very highly political, or they wouldn't be there or remain there, which we found out big time with Moron and the other guy whose daughter made millions on an absolutely framed case. And I found out myself being in front of a judge who rendered a decision that he prepared before he heard my testimony, didn't even bother to fake it, and rendered every decision against me, humanly possible, including wanting me to have to give up my grandfather's 140-year-old watch, which is the one thing I asked to keep. I got to keep everything finally, but I asked to keep one thing. Possessions are possessions. That was probably the only one that was more than a possession. He told me he had to take one away from a sort of a poor Hispanic man. And I questioned, well, why'd you do that? You're allowed to have people who go bankrupt, whatever, keep certain things that are, especially meaningful. And they were going to get plenty of money. They're not going to pretty much get everything. And all of it based on their destroying me. All of it based on completely framed up cases, including the completely framed up disbarment of me for things that no lawyer in a million years would be disbarred for, without a single complaint in any of the cases that I brought. No complaints from clients. I didn't steal any money from clients, God forbid. I had no clients complaining about me. The judge in the case that they used didn't complain about me. The lawyers in the case. It's the political operative who did it, and he made the case to the crooked political operation known as the New York Bar Association. It's a disgraceful bar association. If you belong to it, you're just admitting that you're a shill for democratic corruption. So according to this, they forged internal documents so they can promote unqualified individuals who are politically connected. They approved an awful lot of completely false overtime, which was just straight out fraud. He refused to cooperate with the feds on immigration, particularly in Roosevelt Avenue, which he says Daughtry probably has more to do with turning it into a den of prostitution and drugs than anyone else. So I don't know. This isn't good news for Adams. I was thinking about him a bit. The big reservation is he never goes through with what he says he's going to do because he gets politically frightened. And then, of course, there's always, the case did get dropped, but the case that was dropped was the bullshit case. The case that worried me is the case with the massively excessive homeless and illegal migrant contracts, much more than other states. The allegations that when he was borough president, he'd whack up a lot of that money among friends. And now he was working with 2-3 times that money and doing strange things like encouraging these illegals to come to New York and offering them credit cards. Who the hell offers them credit cards? I mean, it wasn't until they indicted him that he turned. He turned a little before, that is true, because they wouldn't talk to him. According to the indictment that Donlan puts out, or the complaint, Tanea Kinsella was the first deputy commissioner. She was in charge of the NYPD oversight system, and she facilitated its rampant abuse for the politically connected officers, using very often federal grant dollars. Jeffrey Madry in 2016 began a sexual relationship with a subordinate officer, Detective Tabitha Forster, and punched her. He lost 45 days of vacation for doing that, but he wasn't even demoted or fired. John Schell was the chief of patrol in 2008. Schell fatally shot a fleeing suspect, Ortonzo Bovell, in the back. The city paid out $1.5 million in settlement, but Schell was not disciplined in any way. Kaz Daughtry in 2007 pointed his firearm at a civilian on a motorcycle and threatened to kill him. And he was docked for 10 days, and then he became the mayor's most important advisor on law enforcement. And Tarek Shepard, who was the deputy commissioner of public information in 2020, was cited for violent arrests of protesters, causing the city to pay about $500,000 in settlements. He's also one that threatened to kill, I think he's the one who threatened to kill Donlan. And Michael Gerber, the deputy commissioner for legal matters, Donlan says an Adams spy, he helped to orchestrate the arrest of Donlan's wife and protected political allies one after the other. So that's from the former FBI agent who got a good look at my beautiful NYPD. Is it true? I don't know. Is it alleged and should it be taken into consideration? Should you weigh it in your decisions here, given to me, the circumstantial facts that weigh very, very heavily are the out of control spending in New York. It's really wacky ridiculous. I mean, it's like insane, wacky, ridiculous. I may be off a little, but 22 million people in Florida. The budget is about 130 billion. 8 million people in New York. The budget is about 140 billion. How do you figure that? I'll tell you the difference. All right. The difference in the 100 billion excess that New York has given per capita are kickbacks. New York City is endless kickbacks. What am I getting? What's my share? How do we whack it up? What do I get? Why does construction take so long? Why does everything take so long? This is the symbol here, right here. It hasn't changed from the time I prosecuted in the 70s and the 80s. It changed a little when I was mayor, changed a little when Bloomberg was mayor, when you got an honest mayor around. But if you have a mayor that either is dishonest or just lets the system do what it wants because he's a cowardly Democrat, which is what Adams could be. It's not necessarily so that he kept this money, although lots of people are very, very suspicious of his what appears to be excessive spending on clothes and trinkets. So China's working really, really hard to straighten out their economy. They're doing some good things, some bad things. It lies so much that it's very hard to do a really authoritative analysis of their economy. I would say, suffice it to say, that it is in some degree of trouble. The projection that it's going to pass us by mid-century now is starting to move to the latter part of the century. And the real estate market has possibly tanked completely. Their ability to replace us with a consumer base is impossible because their people don't spend money. And then, yeah, you can go sell to other countries, but they have, 10% of the wealth that we have. So their prices are going to have to come down, which means they're going to stop making the profits they were making. They do not have a dynamic economic system. They have an economic system. The last thing you can produce in a top-down command system is morale. Hard to create morale when you're on the, you're working for 10 hours a day and all you do is put this into this. This is why they steal from us. The president is doing a deal with them now, with NVIDIA, pronounced Nubia, I think, and they're going to sell some of their chips to China. Now this is a two-edged sword that you could argue either way. First of all, the guy who runs Nubia, NVIDIA, who is friendly with the president, is also a big pal of Z. He really likes Z, and he says very nice things about him. Anybody who says very nice things about a mass murderer, you got to watch and you got to wonder. He could be playing him, which is okay. But you got to just have it in the back of your mind, Now, the reason to do this is to make China codependent. They need this from us like we need the minerals from them. And it's probably going to take us a good 4 or 5 years to wean ourselves off that. and off the medicines. So we need some things that they need from us, aside from our just big giant market. Because if we give them a big giant market, they can rape us. But if there are specific things, we can hold it there. Now, what I'm saying to you now, the Wall Street Journal, it's so pathetic that Trump understands what I'm saying right now. So the argument that we're allowing these chips to be sold to China, which is subjected to in Congress a fear that they're going to pick up the technology. They have enough of these chips already to pick up the technology. The question is this too complicated for them to reproduce? It either is or it isn't. We've crossed the Rubicon on that. So there's no reason not to do this business with, and they wouldn't be so anxious to be buying these from us if they didn't need a constant source of this. Now, it may very well be that these chips keep improving. So they need a constant source, so they have to constantly keep stealing. But until we break our dependence on them for things that we need, we're going to be in this position, and you have to know how to play it. So I have enough confidence in Trump's anti-Chinese position and his understanding of why we have to beat China, because he's turning the whole world that way. Great article the other day on how he's kind of turned NATO against China. They were already against Russia, but turned them against China. And you've got people in NATO saying Russia wouldn't have been able to do to Ukraine what they did if it wasn't for China. Yes. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Some idiot the other day said we should be paying attention to China, not Ukraine. What's the difference if the Russians win in Ukraine? Well, because China wins, dope. That's why. Are you doing that because you're a traitor or because you're a dope? I won't even mention who you are, only because I can't remember right now. But you're one of those jerks. Might even be a Republican jerk, I'm not sure. Now, here's a very interesting 100th article like this in the last 3 months. How do I evaluate this? I looked today at the China Daily, the China Post. Oh, gee, I'll show you later what they have in the China Post. It's hilarious. So I haven't picked up yet. Now, they may be there and I missed them. I'm going to go back and check tonight. I'll go back over a whole bunch of 2 months of past issues. I haven't picked up a feeling, even just a slight feeling, because you really, all you're going to get is a slight feeling that Z is in deep trouble in the internal press in China that we can get our hands on. Now, you may not find it there. They may not publish until they, put a thing around his neck and throw him in the Yangtze River. But, you might. Because stuff like that, I don't know, you can start to feel it. You can start to feel they're moving away from him. Fewer articles about him. New people being things like that. It used to be like that with Russia. I couldn't read Russian, but I'd have people translate it for me. But there sure have been non-Chinese, but well-sourced outside news organizations that have written rather extensively about something going on in China. And it mostly involves these people being removed from army and political positions. And there are two hypotheses for it. One, they're getting ready to toss him out, and they want to have a transition where there isn't going to be a lot of turmoil fighting for him. Two is he doesn't trust these people anymore. He has gotten rid of a lot of his people at times. And he's bringing in a whole new group where he can keep up the cult of personality. The argument is that enough people in the party are tired of his cult of personality, feel that he's had his chance to revive the economy, command, top-down dictatorship doesn't work. Didn't work for Mao, won't work for him. The best times they've had were under premiers, including Deng, who compromised a little with capitalism and weren't in these pitched wars with greater economic powers. And when that happens, their lying about their economy doesn't help them, which they do. We just don't know how bad. Do not take a single thing they give you that's positive as truthful. The problem is don't ignore it completely because it may not be wildly exaggerated. It's tough. In Russia, we had much more internal intelligence, the way the Israelis have in Iran and all over the Middle East. We don't have that. We don't have that as well in China, at least not for a long time. Xi did clean that up. We probably had more of that during the transitions. But here are some of the things. This is old Soviet nasal gazing when we would look at the group of people at the May Day parade and say, who's the one next to Khrushchev now? What happened to the other guy? We haven't seen him in 5 weeks. Where did he go? How come he's all the way down there looking? He's at the place where if Schumer comes in, he's going to get knocked off the podium. On July 2nd, Beijing announced that Xi, for the first time ever, would miss this year's BRICS summit in Brazil. There he is, wanting to get all those guys, all those big leaders over on his side. And they send somebody else. Think they're getting those BRIC countries ready for a new dictator. Now, even better, Xi's wife, Peng Liyun, has not been seen in public for more than 2 months. Maybe she's stashing the money somewhere. And Ma Xingru, who is Xi's closest senior advisor, was recently assigned to another post and removed from his position as Xinjiang's party secretary. And Xinjiang is a very key province. And we don't know what post he's been removed from. It might be a post hanging on a scaffold. But he's not around. You know, several generals have been removed. They see, the experts who are looking at this, see a lot of parallels to the Soviet Politburo in the 80s as it went into the 90s. Huge outflows of capital, tremendous incentive money put into the economy. With regardless of that, tremendous unemployment rates at depression level territory, and debt levels, private and public, driving unrest, and the beginnings of scarcity of food. The analysts say that Trump's tariff positions have been catastrophic and not reported on accurately, certainly by the Chinese or by the pro-communist Chinese Western press, which is most of it, where they say that China is working around them. They say that China is working around them into starvation. Now, and they feel that the switch, which has happened several times before, the switch will be similar to the switch from Mao to Deng Xiaoping. It was a switch from the cult of the personality. Mao, used to swim the Yangtze River 40 times in 10 degrees below zero with no clothes on. And his picture was all over and that stupid little face with the mole, you'd see it all over the place. And they all loved it. I don't know why. He would scare the shit out of me. And I said, what's this old bastard doing running my country? And, but Z has tried for 5 or 6 years to replicate that, made it a more authoritarian place, made foreign relations more difficult, has tried to command the change in the economy. And they think there's a body of thought there for a somewhat more collective leadership, which several of the interim presidents, premiers, or whatever have tried. Deng Xiaoping being probably the model that they use. So they think, this is the thinking now from the people who analyze it, that there's a big movement toward a collective leadership. Get Z out, bring in somebody to be, of course, the number one guy, but in a much more collegial situation where power is not in the hands of just one person. Now, that could start that way. I mean, it always starts that way in a communist and socialist country, and you know where it ends up. But a couple of years like that could do wonders for their economy, as it did under Deng Xiaoping. China today is by far the largest dual-use technology provider to Putin's war machine in Ukraine, the largest supporter of terrorist governments in Asia, and the greatest global thief of U.S. intellectual properties. Now, there's little the United States can or should do directly to push Z out of power, but Trump can certainly encourage positive change in China with several concrete actions. These are suggestions of Gregory W. Slayton, who's a former U.S. diplomat and author of Portraits of Ukraine. First, he should get behind the Russian sanctions bill and follow up on his threat to impose 100% secondary tariffs on countries that buy Russian energy. He says even some effectiveness, even if in a lot of cases it doesn't work, given the problems they have already, this will crush them, also discourage them. And they're already down on Russia. And this could be the coup de grace for their relationship with Russia. Also, Trump has got to tighten up very, very heavily on Chinese spies and industrial espionage, because as we're cracking down in one area, they're stealing from us in another. And he should send clear signals that we wouldn't be too unhappy with a little more loosened up Chinese leadership like it used to be. That China is not as monolithic as it used to be. That's one of the problems that Xi Jinping has had. It has, like Iran, it's spread out a little bit more. It expresses its unhappiness a little faster. And therefore, hearing that there are substantial number of people in China that realize that the answer there might be the old dream of a decent economic relationship with the United States. And if they hear that this will go down well with Trump, it'll help the collectivist group. Let's put it that way. I am repeating to you the observations of Mr. Slayton, and also observations I picked up in other Chinese publications, but not internal. I'll always give you the distinction, because the internal, of course, are the most authoritative. Everybody here could be wrong because they're lying to you, right? I told you about the NVIDIA situation. Now, the University of Michigan, I only do this to get Ted upset, but the University of Michigan, according to our education department, is very vulnerable to sabotage by the Red Chinese. In June, U.S. federal prosecutors accused 2 Chinese nationals of smuggling into the United States a dangerous biological pathogen that they said had the potential to be used for an agricultural terrorism weapon. Now remember, the Chinese own a lot of property specifically around farms and bases. And there's a whole movement now to try to get them out of there and not sell them anymore. So this is not on the drawing boards. These people have been arrested for this. Zunyong Liu, a Chinese researcher, is alleged to have brought the pathogen into the United States while visiting his girlfriend, Young King Jian, in July 2024. And he has, in fact, admitted to smuggling in a fungus so he can conduct research on it at a University of Michigan laboratory where his girlfriend worked. So this is a case that I guess is going to get tried. The education department said the university has received $375 million in foreign funding since just 2020 and was late in reporting $86 million of that amount. U.S. law requires universities to report donations from foreign sources exceeding $250,000 a year. Now, this is a very important area that we've got to do a lot more in, because a lot of our universities have been turned into one world universities, not just arguing for the benefits of a one world government and economy, but viciously attacking and distorting the history of our great country. I was looking up a couple of colleges on history courses because I'd like to see if I could teach one part-time. Hard to find an American history course, American sports, American motion pictures. What about America from George Washington to Donald Trump, the greatest country in the history of the world? That one, with that history book. How about that one? Yeah. We'll put in the bad things they did. We'll put in slavery, how bad it was. We'll also put in how all those white people died to free the slaves. We'll put in the robber barons and all that stuff. We'll also put in how we saved Europe twice and redeemed Eastern Europe from communism. We'll explain the evils of communism and socialism and how it failed 27 times so that our students don't go off not knowing what the hell socialism is. We'll take them to Cuba. Let them see what Cuba looks like right now. Cuba's going crazy right now. They're having terrible food shortages in Cuba. Venezuela, I was going to do this story, but we ran out of time. Venezuela is locking up a lot of people right now. Something's going on down there with Maduro. So these are situations we have to be on the other side of, because the communist sympathizers teach that these countries are like modern great countries. But just grab a couple of people by the scruff of the neck and take them there. The Democratic Party, even though the president has some contradictory poll numbers now on this Epstein thing, where people don't seem to think that he's handling it the right way, although there was a contrary poll, by the way. But in any event, there is one poll that I think can tell you everything you need to know. I can't imagine a political party ever being this low. This is the Quinnipiac poll, which is not a Republican poll. It is a slightly left, but not horribly left poll. I think, Ted, you're going to find this number ridiculous. Only 19% of registered voters approve of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, that's too high. That's too high.
That's less than a fifth of the country. They generally get 40 to 45% of the vote when they get beaten.
Right. That's very low.
The Democratic voters, 52% disapprove of the Democratic Party, and 39% are satisfied. Republicans Republicans, 77% approve of the job that GOP members have done. So the Republican Party, despite all the talk, is now the numbers for approval, disapproval overall are 39% of Democrats satisfied, 52% of Democrats unsatisfied. The voters unsatisfied. Overall, Republicans have 33% approve and 62% disapprove. So in Congress, we have we're a little more underwater than they are. The Democrats are 39% approve, we're 33% approve. Approve, yeah. The Democrats are 52% disapprove, we're 10% more disapprove in Congress. But when we look at the parties, only 19% of voters approve of the way Democrats in Congress are handling their job. So that's a pretty low number, whereas 33% of Republicans approve. And so Republicans are happy by a big number with their party, and Democrats are net unhappy with their party. So that has to tell you something. Now, we take a break but why don't we do that, and then we'll come back and we'll wrap up. And U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month.
Wow.
Including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast. These deals are selling out.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because we like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee. Welcome back. Rudy Giuliani. This is America's Mayor Live, the 714th edition of America's Mayor Live. Just a couple of quickies before we go, in case you haven't heard about it. An MS-13 gang banger who killed two people. Kevin Cuevas Creepa del Cid finally pled guilty to charges that he posed as a young girl in 2016 to get a 20-year-old man to show up in a wooded area near the Merrick-Freeport border, and he hacked him to death with machetes. That was one of two that he pled guilty to. He also tricked Karen Pineda into an ambush on May 21st, 2016, because Pineda was suspected of being part of the rival 18th Street gang. In the second killing, he convinced him to come to the Cow Meadow Park to smoke marijuana, where he hacked him to death and buried him nearby. These are the people, MS-13, that have been introduced to the United States, first by Obama, that President Trump got in trouble when he called them animals in 2015, and challenged Trinidad as two of the largest criminal, alien, illegal gangs in America. And when they say, you know, that the illegals don't commit as much crime as the Americans, they're talking about the earlier group of illegals that came in under either good or fair conditions of vetting, but they had to get around them and sneak around. And that tends to put some control on who you bring in, how you bring them in. When you have an open border like Biden did, barn doors open, everybody can come in, nobody gets checked. That's when you get a disproportionate number of criminals. The people who tell you the opposite are unrealistic jackasses who don't have the best interest of the United States at heart and are using false comparisons. We didn't have MS-13s in Trinidad during that period, by the way. And these people are as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than our internal organized crime group. Look, we got enough problem with, even if it's true they don't commit as much crime as people in the United States, we have enough crime in the United States. Why should we be importing any? Shouldn't you let people shouldn't you have control over who comes in so you don't let criminals in? You don't have a right to come to this country. Where did that ever start? If that ever starts and we really make it stick like they're trying to, the country's over. The nationality is gone. There's nothing connects us together if these people come in. They don't share our values. They hate our country. They have a different definition of sex than we do. They have a different definition of religion than we do. They got a different definition of morality than we do. They got a different lack of value of life that we don't have. Many of them are completely uncivilized and don't want to be civilized. And if you try to civilize them, you're being condescending. I mean, these crimes are unbelievable. The hearings that took place the other day indicate the Secret Service has a long, long way to go. And I'm very interested in those reforms, and there's a good editorial about it. But I wish there'd be a better editorial about how about solving the crimes, huh? And here we get to the whole thing of what MAGA may be upset about, the overreaction, which I think it is, to the Epstein thing. May very well not just be about Epstein, which is why, I think throwing in Comey and Brennan may or may not have been on purpose. The whole feeling is they just get away with everything. I know that the press and the Democrats are very good at intimidating with the idea that no vindication, you shouldn't use politics for revenge, and then there's the certain we shouldn't be like them. And the president bought that the first time, right, in not prosecuting Hillary. I think in retrospect, he was wrong in not prosecuting Hillary, because I think prosecuting Hillary, and you could have prosecuted Comey back then, and Strzok, and the girlfriend, and the somebody or other, the number two guy who went on CNN after he had lied his ass off over and over and orchestrated the fix. I think a bunch of them being prosecuted might have slowed them down. But that's what I think. And of course, I wanted that. But the argument that you didn't want to change tradition and prosecute the losing party made some sense, nor could you possibly predict how evil they could be, and they would do that. Well, now they've done it. We're not prosecuting them to prosecute our political enemies. We're prosecuting them because we took an oath to uphold the law and they broke the law. And the minute we do anything else, then we should be thrown out of office. But the minute we fail to do something else, we don't belong in office either. You got to have the courage to prosecute, even when people don't understand it completely. You got to explain it to them. You have to have the courage not to prosecute, even though people don't understand it. And you have to explain it to them. I've had to do both in my career, and that's part of the challenge of it. Justice Jackson said that a prosecutor doesn't achieve justice with a conviction. He achieves justice if he can arrive at the truth. I believe that. I live by it. And we're not going to restore it by ignoring the serious crimes that these people committed, or just doing it based on one-off crimes like, Shifty Schiff. It appears, allegedly, that Shifty Schiff has a smashed down, easy fraud conviction. You can only have one primary residency under oath and significant documents that would give him great advantages, lied and said he had two. Okay. But as I told you last night, I'm not sure that's a prison sentence. I'm sure the rest of it is lying over and over again in order to dislodge a lawfully elected president, which smells an awful lot like treason, huh? It sure as hell is fraud, serious fraud, a lot worse than lying about your residence. So look, should they be prosecuted for these little things? Haven't made up my mind. Should they be prosecuted for the big things? You're damn right they should. Should we be afraid that we're going to be attacked as vindictive? No. Because we follow my rule. If you want to end up like me, maybe you don't. Look in the mirror and ask what's right. Don't look in the newspapers and the television and ask what's right. They don't know. They don't have a soul. Newspapers don't have a soul. TVs, computers, even AI doesn't have a soul. You have a soul. And it doesn't communicate with a computer. It communicates with God. Yeah, so you got some doubt. You go sit there and you use your mind as a trained lawyer and prosecutor. You use your mind as a trained, decent representative of Western civilization. And if you're a Jew or a Christian, you use your soul and you communicate with your God. I don't pretend he's going to come down like Moses and give you the 10 commandments. Maybe he will. But it's always helped me. He's never told me what to do, but I figured it out. And in my own limited way, felt comfortable with it once I thought about it, prayed about it. When I say pray about a decision, I don't necessarily mean get down and say 3 Our Fathers and 3 Hail Marys or recite a Hebrew psalm or whatever you do. I mean, prayer is talking to God, thinking it out. If you ever, if you ever hear me in my room sometime talking, don't think I'm crazy. Sometimes I talk it out. Well, what should I do? What should I do? I mean, we got a good case, and it's first offense. Can we accomplish the same thing for society by an alternative resolution of this based on the old Silvio Malo? Don't worry, if he's a criminal, you'll get him back. Is it too dangerous to society to use that rule? Isn't it? The prosecuting is not, I got the evidence, I prosecute. Prosecuting is, does the evidence reach proof beyond a reasonable doubt? I add an extra part to it because I need to. If I get past that, I'm technically okay. But how about internally, do I believe he's guilty? I'm a professional, particularly after I did it for 4 or 5 years. I should have a sense of it. And finally, does the crime and the consequences of it exceed the wrongdoing? And can you do it another way? Most often with the crime we're dealing with now, you can't. And unfortunately, we do it the other way, not just once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times. I ran out of fingers. Well, I'm going to show you, when Stephen comes back, we're going to do a drone flyover. But I want to show you a couple of pictures maybe I'll show them after we say goodnight and we'll put them on as the after. Can you show this as our after thing, Ted? Yeah. See? Here. What do you want to do? I'm trying to get another one up, but I might. Okay, do the other one. I'll show them this now, okay? Yeah, I probably won't get it up. But if you can, you will, but I want to show them. This is the view from my office and from my bedroom. No, that's why I come up with great ideas, right? Look at that. You see right there, it's like you can't really see it. There's a pond there. They even have little boats you can go fishing in that little pond. I'm surprised you can't see it. Now, the opening is like a bay, and that goes out to the Atlantic Ocean beyond. And beyond those trees there, that's sort of the way to, that's the way to Boston, actually. Then if you go a little to the left, that would be the way to Portsmouth. We're only 10 minutes from Portsmouth. That's just the ground. Now, that unfortunately unfortunately or fortunately was the bombing in Damascus to stop them from killing the Druze and the Christians. That's the road. Oh, I don't know if you guys saw this from the Babylon Bee. CNN marks 1-year anniversary of Trump falling down after loud popping noises. The nation will always remember the startling images of Trump falling over and hitting his ear, said Anderson Cooper. The big oaf just tumbled over, surprised as he was by some inconspicuous popping sounds, while we have never confirmed what the noises were or how Trump got a cut on his ear. The day will go down in history nonetheless. That's the CNN coverage of the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. This is a Ukrainian family who narrowly escaped death in a Russian bombing. Aren't they a lovely family? That's Mrs. Trump's picture from the I think you'll recognize it as Mrs. Trump's picture from the inauguration. This went viral in Ukraine when they found out that Mrs. Trump urged the president to stop being so tolerant with Putin. And they said it brought out her Slovenian background. The Slovenians and the Russians, it's not a lot of love lost between those two. We'll have to say that for sure, right? Now let's see. I got a few more that I want to get to. Be a little movement here through stuff you don't necessarily want to see, but now you want to see that. These are pictures from our clam bake, and there's Dr. Maria. You see Ted. You see Stephen. You see Paula and Wayne Simprini. You see John Paul. Peter Paul. There's Mrs. Peter Paul. That's a statue in the back, right, Ted? Yeah. Okay. Oh, well, it's not going to do me much good now when it did that. There's the little crew talking, the New Englanders. Now, we'll get through our maps. So here's the house. There's the house. Ted is downstairs. I'm upstairs. And one of the owners is upstairs there. And our studio that we're in is along that right side, and it's the full area in the back. And then behind it is a gigantic barn where we should have a show. We should put on a show. That's what it looks like a little further. We're getting out toward the pond. You can see a little of the pond here. Look. See? See it? A few more, a little crooked pictures, but that's okay. We could straighten them out. There's going to be horses here pretty soon. There's the pond. I got it. There's the good old pond. And that's it. Okay. So, please pray for the people in Ukraine. Pray for the people in Israel. Pray for the people in Iran. Pray for our people. Pray for the president. Give him the wisdom. And we're really happy, God, with the wisdom you've given him. Just keep giving it to him. Okay? And pray and guide us so that we are good, loyal Americans and we're raising the right questions and not the wrong ones that'll distract people, and that we're, Ted and I and Dr. Maria, are fulfilling our function of honestly bringing you the stuff you don't get from other people. That's what I try to collect every day. I mean, some of the things we have to cover because it's the biggest thing, but we try there to look for the things that are either going to be ignored or underemphasized. Like, I don't think anybody is telling you how unpopular the Democrats are right now. They're talking about, well, Trump is getting a little unpopular because of either Epstein or who knows what. Well, that's questionable. There are polls that go both ways on that. I do have to say that because I have lots of MAGA friends. I mean, I'm a very good friend of Steve Bannon's. You know what Steve Bannon is saying as much as I do. That it concerns me. I think I have a much more accepting approach to it that goes like, I'm not satisfied with the explanation. I am satisfied with their credibility, however, and I attribute it to things that can't be brought out right now. I may be being too tolerant. I don't know. I do know it's going to have to eventually be explained, but I also think, like the president has said, maybe a little too strongly, this really isn't the matters of life and death that we're facing. Oh, that pond is so pretty. Well, I think That uses up all my pictures that I wanted to show you. Except, would you like to see the cut on my knee? Yeah, show them the cut on my knee. Had to have that fixed. All righty. I had to send it to the doctor. It's healing nicely. I refuse to show you my knees live. I don't want to get you sick. So, God bless America. It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense. So let's do it.